Dear Abby Normals,
Welcome to Deeply Disturbing Things.
the podcast.
I'm Macy.
I'm Naomi.
And I'm Sarah.
And when we look at ourselves, we get really confused. Thanks for joining us.
We're three anxious counselors.
Mm-hmm.
that
We like to talk about deeply disturbing
deeply
things.
disturbing things.
I
You
skipped-
took 1 week off and it all goes out the
It's
window.
fine. I just skipped that and I added I what's that called? I did a ad-lib.
Improv?
You
Yeah.
improvised.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ad
that
lib.
works.
And maybe I just didn't go back to it because I felt it was sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're
That's
right.
good.
All right. I am going to talk about something that when I first say it, people might be like, I don't want to hear about this or whatever, but I'm going to approach it in some ways that I think will be some interesting conversation with us.
Let's do it.
Alrighty.
I'm going to talk about incest.
Great.
I'm going to talk about incest in popular culture.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about incest in psychology
Okay.
and dive into why it's taboo and why we are also drawn to
This
it.
is such a good topic for all those reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't usually say like what I'm going to talk about, but I felt like I needed
I don't know why
to.
I'm excited to talk about it, but I am. Like,
Yeah.
It's because it's a taboo, deeply disturbing subject.
It is, yes. So I looked up the law in Washington State. So we have like first degree and second degree
really?
Oh.
in the RCW. So first degree is if it's sexual intercourse, and then second degree is sexual contact.
Hmm.
So it's with somebody that a person knows to be related to them either legitimately or illegitimately as an ancestor, descendant, brother, or sister of either the whole or the half-blood. I thought that was really
Prince?
weird that it says the half-blood in our
Prince?
RCW. Yeah.
That is odd. I don't.
It's very strange
Half
wording.
vampire?
I mean,
Half werewolf?
I wouldn't even lie. I'm actually a little. I mean, I don't want to say
Which?
shocked, but like just having it. I did not even know there was an RCW attached to that specifically. But I've seen some things in there too, like the like age of consent laws, with a little asterisk that says except if you're married, and then I'm like, oh gross, I forgot about that. And like you could be way over age and marry a 13-year-old if there's parental consent and it's a legal marriage, and then you can have sex like and it's like, oh, but that's legal. Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
Okay, law.
Yeah.
There's just things that feel weird in there.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Like blood princes.
The half-blood. I mean, it's right here in our RCW. It's just strange wording to me.
Mhm.
So, what is incest? Sexual relations
tell?
between family members who are not spouses. Notice that caveat, like you just said. Formerly known as incest. It's illegal across the US, but the way it's illegal is different in different states.
Right.
So some things are illegal, like allowed, and some things aren't, but in general, it's illegal across the US
Mhm.
because of the harm that can cause to family relationships and victims. So states recognize also that children from incestuous relationships tend to be born with genetic issues. So this is another
Right.
reason behind the prohibition of it, but I'll get into that a little bit more later.
I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So laws may prohibit sexual relations not only between blood relatives, but also between certain people who are not blood relatives, such as adopted parents and children,
So like power dynamic.
step parents and
That would
step
make sense
children.
because you're not allowed to adopt if you're gonna be, if that's your motive. Like, yeah.
Foster parents and foster children. Close cousins are covered, but distance cousins may not be, unless they live in the same household, like siblings. So that's just sort of in general across the US, and there may be some nuances state by state. So there's a lot of incest that is shown in pop culture. And when I started diving into this, yeah, I was
Which
like
one?
blown away by how much it is. Yes,
Oh, right.
Cersei and Jaime Lannister,
There's this.
their brother and sister from Game of Thrones and the House of Lannister. And right away, like I think it's early on in like the first season, they just show them going at it.
Oh, yeah.
and you're like, they're brother and sister. And yet you're like fascinated. Like I didn't turn the show off. I was like, I want to know more.
You
How
know
did this
the other movie?
start? You know, the whole thing.
You know the other movie that has that? Star Wars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And because I read somewhere that what's his name? Who's the director?
George Lucas.
Yes, thank you. He throws that into other like different movies. Like he has a weird thing with that.
Interesting.
That he like puts that into his
Yeah.
movies.
They never do anything. There was one kiss, but it was because Leia was trying to make Han jealous. So I don't know if it really counts, but they were brother and sister and didn't know it, and the story was kind of pushing them together.
Right. I'm trying to think of any other ones.
Blue Lagoon.
I don't know what that is.
It was with Brooke Shields.
What was
Who's
that?
It was a 1980 film.
No, I know the movie, but I didn't know they were related.
They were cousins in the film, and they end up stranded on an island and end up having a baby. And that movie is scandalous for lots of reasons.
Yeah, because she was very.
She was 15 and she was super sexualized in this movie, so she just came out with a whole book or a
I
documentary
just saw that, yeah.
called Pretty Baby about her experiences being sexualized at a young age. Norman Bates, mother and son in Psycho.
They did stuff.
Was
it necrophilia?
It was very like close relationship.
Makes sense.
It was like a
I think
kind of.
they slept in the same bed. I think after the mom died, like he kept her in the bed or something.
Yeah, he kept her.
He kept her. Did he wear her skin?
I don't think so. I think he just kept her in a chair or something.
Well,
I don't know what he did.
Like it's something like an option that people do. Like, oh, did he?
Did he keep her or not?
Did you wear her skin? Oh no, not that.
You know you're desensitized when you can make
yeah.
that comment with nothing.
Like my brain literally went like, oh yeah, no, not that one. Okay.
Yeah,
that was Silence of the Lambs.
The other one.
He definitely affected her dead body though, and cuddled.
That was cuddling for sure. Yeah.
Ew. I've never seen that.
The Royal Tenenbaums.
Oh, great movie. But
Margot
yes,
and Richie?
Which one?
They're siblings, but Margot's adopted. But they're in love, they make out.
Yeah.
In Clueless, Cher and Josh are ex-step siblings. They end up getting together at the end of the show.
Oh, that's right.
Who is Paul Rudd, who I love.
Yes, I loved that one.
Clueless?
Yeah.
I know Clueless, like it's been so long since I've seen it.
Yeah.
Well, Paul Rudd was like the hot
He was
older
so
brother
cute.
and was always at the house even though
Yeah.
their parents were divorced, and he was like the son of like the
I
ex.
love him.
So
But he was always just like there.
Euro Trip. Have you ever seen Euro Trip?
No, that's a good movie.
They're siblings and they like got drunk off of, I think it was absinthe, and they were in a club and made out and then realized that it was their brother and sister.
Oh, was that with Paul Rudd?
No.
Oh.
I don't know. They're kind of unknown people. But
Paul Rudd is adorable.
I love Paul Rudd.
Is there a part in Shameless like where the brother like makes out with the sister and like they figure out that like it was those two that or something happened, and then he goes and he like throws up in the garbage can once he figures it out. There was something. It was like
probably.
It was like a
just
little-
knowing that show, probably.
And I could totally be wrong. I'm not a diehard. I know there are some diehard Shameless fans out there, so please don't come at me. But I might be wrong.
I love that show. I never saw the last season. I'm gonna go.
I'm not done. I'm not
Yeah,
done.
I'm not done, but I love it. Enjoy it tremendously. So why is incest taboo?
I mean, I think that it's a good point of that if you have a child together, there's abnormalities and defects that happen, and so it's kind of like a health concern.
I know that with dogs. I have never seen the research for people, but I know that they do that with like pedigree breeding and things. Like if there's too much over a period of time. I'm just curious, is that like, are they saying like one-off things are going to cause that? Because I feel like that's not so much what that is, but I don't know.
The closer the relationship, the more likely
statistically
there's
higher.
going to be something.
Okay.
It can show up in different ways. It can be
Interesting,
intellectual
okay.
disabilities often.
Disabilities.
Uh-huh.
So like if like father, daughter, mother, son would have a higher percentage than like
Like a cousin.
cousins.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Because that my question is, if there wasn't, disabilities that came about having children with incest, would it be fine then?
That's a good question.
Would people be accepting of it?
Sex researchers have long known that people are drawn to taboos like incest and may even get turned on by it.
Oh.
It is
There's
everywhere in
porn.
porn. I paused because I'm like, I don't think my dad's caught up on episodes. I don't have to worry about this right now. But yes, porn.
That's what my research
exists.
showed, that in the last few years, there's been a huge rise in the popularity of incest porn, which is called faux cest, because they're not really like related.
Yeah, and you'll
Oh,
see like
right.
it's
They're like playing.
then
They'll be like, oh,
step,
sisters or something.
stepmom.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, stepmom. Yeah, step makes it okay.
So it
Yeah.
gains popularity. There's something engaging about doing or watching something you're not supposed to be doing. So that's what sex researchers have found, that people are really drawn to it because it's, wrong or naughty. The debate around the origin of the incest taboo has centered around nature and nurture. So here's the questions. Like what you just said, is it a cultural implementation of the natural biological aversion that we have around sexual relations with those we share genes
I think
with?
that's a big part of it.
Which would be like a survival thing, it would be protective so that you have healthy kids. But this can't be the only reason for the taboo, because the prohibitions also cover what's called affinity relationships. So these are relationships created by marriage, for example,
Right.
father-in-law and stepfather, or relationships created by adoption.
Sure, that's more culturally defined.
So it can't just be, the worry about having genetic issues. And second, the incest taboo also applies for non-procreative sex, for example, between infertile relatives, people of the same sex, or sex performed with birth control.
Or other, things.
Yeah, non-procreative sex.
Is that what that summarizes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are the
I didn't know what you
questions about, the origin of the taboo. It's not that simple. We can't just say, oh, it's because if you create a child, it's gonna have intellectual disabilities. Like there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's also creates a lot of stigma too for people that maybe have a child who has the disability too. So like I think they're going to be kind of cautious, like how that is used.
Some royal families purposefully intermarried to protect assets and bloodlines.
Game of Thrones.
Bunch of liars though. Come on. Really, it's not pure.
That was just their way to cover it up.
It's just a way to feel more important.
Tutankhamun, the famous pharaoh,
King
Tut's parents were brother and sister.
Okay.
And he had weak bones and a frail immune system and died at the age of 18.
Wow.
Interesting.
I mean, to be fair, must live till 23. No.
I'm not sure.
I mean,
a lot.
It definitely sounds more shocking than it probably is.
True.
From 1516 to 1700, 9 out of 11 marriages in the Spanish branch of Habsburgs were incestuous. So they developed this condition called the Habsburg jaw, which is this huge jaw that
elongated.
You couldn't really eat well or speak or close your mouth. And so that was a result of all of the inbreeding.
But here's my question, in early humankind, when there was not very many people, you would think that that's kind of how
maybe we're all just an outcome.
I think we're all incestual.
we're all the outcome of a bunch of defects. None of this is how we're supposed to look.
right? He's
All
like,
of this is a happy accident.
way back when, I would think like that's what you'd have to do to make more
Make
people.
more people. You gotta work with what you have, I guess.
But maybe over time, though, with more
The sick ones would die off, and then the healthy ones would keep.
I mean, is this basically?
Variety in the gene
You-
pool is supposed to be helpful.
I was gonna
Lead
say
to better
it's
outcomes.
technically some eugenics that's
I mean,
happening.
but see, even when you say better outcomes, again, there's
right. That's
stigma, like we're devaluing people that are born with
well,
intellectual
and if
disabilities or
it's-
other
Yeah.
issues.
defining that it is a form of eugenics and a fashion of like we're not allowing this
Right.
to happen.
We're saying this is
this
preferred.
is okay and this is not,
Right. This
And-
outcome is better than this outcome.
which we value living a long time in our culture and individuality in our culture. less
We value
collectivism.
abilities,
Well, yeah, if your bones are weak
typical
and
abilities.
you die early, then
Right.
that's not
But
someone's best
again,
quality
like what
of
if
life.
that person's super happy and fine with it?
Or-
Well, they were a great ruler,
And-
so
and comes
made
out
the most of his
super
time.
rich.
like what if they like solve world hunger and they're 3 years alive?
Yeah.
Like how do we value?
Yeah,
how
there's
do
a
we
lot
weigh
of
that
judgment
happening?
that's attached to all this.
Yes.
So the last
Or they're just happy.
Habsburg male was infertile and the line died out. All right,
Well,
let's
it's time.
get into
That's
our
that.
field.
Okay.
Good old Freud,
Oh, Freud.
the creator of
Or the cocaine nose
psychoanalysis.
job. Wait, what? Sorry.
Cocaine nose job. Sorry, you said.
Yeah.
He coined the term the Oedipus complex
Mhm.
in
Where you're into
1899.
the father or mother.
This theory
Parents.
put forth
Either
that everyone is interested in incest,
Mm.
and at the same time as he put that out, he then pathologized it.
Right. Well, he's a very egocentric person, anyways. So if he's thinking about it, then everybody must be thinking about it. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, Freud.
So I want to go into this.
Good.
This is a good.
This brought me
topic.
back to grad school, like looking into this Oedipus complex stuff. 'Cause I honestly learned about it and I threw it away. I'm like, eh.
I would go against the
It
popular
goes into the
vote.
Jungian. Go ahead. No, sorry.
I would go against the popular opinion, maybe that I think there is some truth to that you are attracted to the like qualities of your parent, opposite sex parent,
Sexually though?
but not attracted to the parent.
Well, that's what he's saying.
Oh, but that
No, like
the
you're actually
partner that
attracted.
you're. So he was
That's
saying
watered
you're
down.
actually
That's watered down.
attracted
Yeah.
to the parent.
Let's review it.
I mean,
Let's go back to grad school.
that's your first idea of love,
Well,
Maybe.
your first relationship
but you don't know
is
sexuality.
typically with your mom. That's your like first primary relationship.
I
Typically.
think there's something to it, but he went off the wall with
He
it.
was the first one to come
He was using a lot of cocaine.
out.
Let's be honest.
So that's why
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So the Oedipus complex. This,
Oh.
according to Freud, occurs during the phallic stage of psychosexual development. I mean, right there, you have a stage of development that is called the phallic stage.
PHALL.
Yes, which occurs during ages 3 to 6. So this is with boys, in which your source of libido is concentrated in the erogenous zones of the
hate-
child's body.
Hate so many words in there, like child and body.
And erogenous.
I know, I just cut out those ones.
So that he came out with that. So the Oedipus complex, the boy version, involves the boy at this age, between ages 3 and 6, becoming unconsciously sexually attached to his mother and hostile towards his father, who he views as his rival. Is it coming back to you?
It is.
Yeah, I know. I'm familiar.
I want
with
to know
this
how many
idea.
toddlers people let around Freud and his cocaine for this study. Oh wait, it wasn't a study. He just ideated it.
No, there was one case study which I'll tell you about in a
One-
But
minute.
have you heard
Yeah.
of like when little kids will be like, I'm gonna marry my dad, and they get mad at the or whatever, and then they get mad at the opposite parent. Like, no, this is my person. So I think there's something there.
Well, so I was and I would say it was like, 'cause my dad had wives One of them in particular, I would get like, I'm gonna sit next to my dad, not you.
Right.
But it was definitely coming from a place of, I think, more protection, like viewing them as
Not
temporary in a way,
sexual,
and like,
but like
no, yeah, like what is that word I'm thinking of?
Like
I
a
know-
bond.
no, I know what you're trying to say, and I'm thinking of it.
It's
too.
like establishing that your attachment
Boundaries.
as stronger. Like I
your
mean more
importance
than
level.
you.
Status.
Status. I like to knock
I'm
them
just
down.
gonna keep throwing out words until you grab them.
I like status.
Okay.
I know what you're thinking of, and I can't get it
As
either.
a child, I needed status over the tall women in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to know that you're not going to get ditched for one of these others.
Right.
Plus, there's the whole Cinderella thing, where the step mom figure is not going to love you as
Oh,
much
I
as
didn't
they
care.
would
I
their
did not care
biological.
about that at all. It was much more.
And maybe try to get rid of you.
Territory,
But
you're
territorial.
yeah.
Territorial is a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
word.
establishing territory.
Self-centered, definitely.
Yeah.
So in the young boy, the Oedipus complex is more like a conflict, and it arises because of these unconscious sexual desires for the mother. So then we get, tying your last topic, envy, are aimed at the father, who is the object of the mother's affection and attention. And these feelings lead to fantasies of getting rid of the father and taking his place with the mother. So this whole like rivalry.
See, I think that's where he starts kind of going off.
Well, and how often does the
Well, let's go a little
Is that
further off the rails.
parenting relationship actually model
Let's
that?
do.
Getting all the love, like
I know.
I mean,
So these hostile feelings towards the father lead to castration anxiety, an irrational fear that the father will remove his penis to punish him for these thoughts about the mother. So the result of this is typically it's resolved, according to Freud, through a process of identification with the same-sex parent. So the boy will identify with the father and internalize their values, attitudes, and behaviors.
I think
leading
that is
to that
important in
masculine-
development to identify with the same-sex parent, but not for the reasons Freud stated.
well, I mean, we're getting into so many gender norms here that are
Yeah, well, this was Victorian.
gray area. I know. Well, and circumcision too. Like, not every culture circumcises, so that's odd.
Being
No,
like fear of
castration.
castration,
castrate. Oh, just kidding.
chopping it off.
Chopping it off, yeah.
But like, if a child's never heard that before, or I don't know where that's just gonna.
That was where the cocaine came in.
Hippos were coming over that day.
Yeah.
I forgot.
So the father becomes a role model rather than a rival, and through this identification with the aggressor, boys acquire their superego and the male sex role. And the boy substitutes his desire for the mother with his desire for other women.
I mean, and they're very young at this stage. I mean, I could see there being like not understanding like why a bodily reaction's happening. Because I think developmentally that may be appropriate. Like I've had a client before who was very young and would have bodily things happen.
They all do.
I know,
They
it
all play with
makes me
their
uncomfortable to
winkies.
say it. And but have no like idea why or any like, and then it just would like go away and you're like, oh my gosh, I just don't just go over there for a while, please.
Well, it feels good when you touch it. So
What was
why
his
not touch
idea
it?
of what was the age of resolution?
This is all happening 3 to 6.
So they had the fear or had this problem
Yeah.
and then resolved it within that.
Yeah,
time?
so at age 7, they're into a different phase of psychosexual development.
Mm.
So he based all of this on his Little Hans case study.
Oh, I remember Little Hans.
Little
Okay.
Hans, and
Yeah.
I read about this because I didn't refresh
Time ago.
myself.
Yeah.
And I think that Freud was completely wrong. I think that little Hans experienced a trauma related to the horses, and that's why he had a fear of the horses. It wasn't because, as Freud thought, he was seeing the horse's big wings,
Oh.
and this was
I
part
never
of
heard this case study.
his Oedipus complex, like he was associating the big horse wings with the dad's wings.
Yeah, no,
No.
it was a trauma, probably.
He witnessed a horse falling down in the street and its hooves going like this on the cobblestones, and that's what he was afraid of, a horse falling down and having a loud noise.
Trampling.
It was trauma.
Yeah.
It wasn't this Oedipus thing. So poor little Hans.
Wow.
But that one case study, he developed this whole theory. So the Electra complex is the counterpart, is the like girl version.
Which is so true that aren't there like it's not one movie, is it called Electra? I don't know. They made like a superhero thingy about
Yeah, I think it had Jennifer Garner.
But yeah, but it was like again like super sexualized woman.
So this is a girl between ages of 3 and 6 becoming unconsciously sexually attached to her father, and having increasingly hostile feelings towards the mother. So the Electra complex was actually, I was surprised by this, proposed by Jung,
Predecessor
not
though.
Freud. It was Freud's
I
protege.
feel like there's something there, but without the sexuality piece.
You
like
was
the
big
attachment piece.
into the shadow parts and the parts of self, which so this kind of to me it can definitely fall in line with that, like your shadow self, the urges and things that are definitely there, but we kind of repress them back.
Repressed.
Mm-hmm.
I
So
love her to throw out keywords that means okay.
I like to do that.
Reflect.
So for girls, the Electra complex begins with the belief that she's already been castrated, already lost her penis, which is not true. I mean, that's not how it works.
Wow. I had no idea.
Everybody
So
actually
extreme.
starts out with the girl parts, and the ones that become penises,
The
like,
ones.
it fuses up. That's why you can see
Those
the scene
lines.
where it
Yeah.
fuses right on the scrotum sac and everything. So a clitoris is actually like what develops in
So we all
those
start
that
with women.
develop into penises.
We all start with female organs.
Yeah. And then some people develop a penis out of the scrot.
Some people are just dicks.
It's the same parts.
I've never heard of the screw.
I just made that up. It's not actually an official term. It's not a scientific or medical term.
I like it.
So this
What it
girl
looks like.
blames her mother for this, for losing the penis, and experiences penis envy.
Wait. So mom lost the girl's penis?
Well,
Like in a
the girl
reverse or-
blames the mother
This is
because
like taking it out, and this
the
is
mother somehow
Lost it.
doesn't have
an
one
airhead.
either,
Oh.
and so there's.
it was
this
like a
one-
whole Lorena Bobbitt situation. You know, we're getting
But
blown
how,
up
I mean,
though.
that's like assuming the child knows that mom doesn't have one too. How does child know that mom doesn't have one too? There's a lot of assumptions here.
Well, it probably witnessed. You know, you see people naked in your house. For girls to develop their superego and female sex role, they need to identify with the mother. But the girl's motivation for giving up her father as a love object in order to move back to her mother is not as obvious as the boy identifying with the father. So, as a consequence, girls' identification with the mother is less complete than boys with their fathers. And this makes the female superego weaker, and their identity as a separate,
Okay,
independent
Freud.
person
Or
less
human.
developed.
Excuse me.
Excuse me, Jung.
I've met many less developed men. Thanks.
I always liked Young until now.
Oh.
The dream.
I wanted to know more. So I did a deep dive
As we do.
and found an interesting book called Strong Mothers, Weak Wives: The Search for Gender Equity by Miriam M. Johnson. And I looked at a chapter called From Patriarchal Incest to Daddy's Girl. And it's a really interesting look at Freud's Oedipus complex, from like a social view. It's so interesting. So I hope you all will nerd out with me a little bit on this. So the author says it is possible that there has been fairly prevalent in the past in the United States a kind of father-daughter incest that was considered more or less the legitimate right of the patriarch. The father simply saw himself as the owner of the children, not their caretaker, but their owner. Both mother and father might agree that for a child, quote, to service the old man, unquote, sexually, was not all that out of line with his rights.
I've never heard that before in my entire life.
But we do know that there may still be laws on the books where it kind of speaks to a man owning the wife and the wife
Right.
not having rights.
So it would just make, it wouldn't be that big of a
Extend to the
stretch to the
children.
person to go down to the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and there's weird people out there that really.
At the time Freud
That
was
way.
writing, there was a great deal of sexual repression in general. So this is the Victorian times.
Mhm.
And especially with regard to adult-child relationships. And this was
Oh, is this when they were dressing like little kids as adults too? Like they were all like, remember, like they did.
Remember Lewis
That's what I
Carroll's
was thinking.
painting
Right.
or taking photos of the kids like
Alice. Real Alice.
undressed and stuff.
Mm-mm.
And he had like, there's real Alice in Wonderland.
There's a real
It's
Alice.
a real Alice. It's a real little girl that he has pictures of like sitting on his lap and like and she like was his favorite and like there's things in there that are super
And there was that
sketchy.
one photo where
Yeah,
she wasn't wearing a shirt.
She looks like
naked.
she's like
Yeah.
a 16-year-old posing
She's
in
a
a
little girl.
porno from the 60s.
And looking really upset, like
Yeah.
not happy about it.
Yeah.
So this author theorizes, based on other works also, that because this was a time of sexual repression, or the reason for the repression was partly because at this time children were seen as like special and precious. This was new. Like before that, kids were just seen as little
You're supposed
adults.
to be like seen but not heard, kind of.
Well, they
Oh.
weren't considered like this precious thing that we
Oh,
have
they
to
were treated the
protect
same.
and yeah, just treated
Many adults.
many adults, yes.
Okay.
And so this was all happening at once. There have this new definition of children as precious, whose innocence must be protected.
Hmm.
And at the same time, there was a great deal of sexual preoccupation. So that's where the repression came from. Because it was something that previously existed, but all of a sudden now kids are special and precious. They have to protect their innocence. So it leads to the repression of these incestuous thoughts that may have existed.
That were already prevalent
Yes.
at that time.
Yeah. So Freud's theories made sex and sexuality central, and it was the result of this both reinforced that preoccupation and said it was bad at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like
Put it at the
both.
center and said, "Don't do it."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't push that red button.
Don't
in
think
front
about
of
it.
you.
Yes,
Think about it.
yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's a book that called I think it's called Happiness. But anyways, he talks about like being mindful that like one of the worst things we do is we tell ourselves like don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, and the more you do that, like it's just concreting it further in your mind.
Yeah, you gotta tell yourself what you want to do.
Right. So don't do that, Freud.
Yeah. Don't do that, Freud.
He won't. He's or he's really old. I'm not sure.
Pretty sure he's
So this part I thought was freaking fascinating in this chapter. So the author says, as we have seen in Freud's scenario, the father enforces the mother-son incest taboo on the son. So it's like, no, you're not going to be thinking of your mom like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the author questions who enforces the father-daughter taboo. There is no avenging father to prevent the father-daughter incest, and there is no avenging mother to enforce it either, because mother as wife to father does not have equal power, as the husband. So in Freud's account, the daughter turns away from the mother in resentment over not having a penis and turns towards her father.
Can we just like exchange the word penis for like not helping, like not like protecting? Like, cause mom's not protecting the child from these incestuous things or can't because she doesn't have enough power to, right?
At
Is that
that
the-
time, culturally.
Penis means power, perhaps.
Perhaps, yes. I mean, I think Freud is being pretty literal, though.
Oh, I'm sure. No, I don't need it. I'm just trying to make it possibly make sense in modern ways.
I mean, there's like this attachment stuff going on that I think he's tapping into, but then when he goes into the sexuality part and the penises, like that's just like
Yeah, and the horses,
And
it like goes
he's
off
just
the rails.
off the rails.
Yeah. So
Cocaine.
what this author is
Yeah.
positing,
Penises,
which I thought was
Get out of
really
here.
cool, or not cool, but like interesting, is that Freud leaves the girl in a semi-sexualized relationship with her father. The daughter never quite gives up the father, and the father never quite gives her up until he gives her away in marriage to another man.
That is true.
I was like, holy shit,
Yeah,
that is fascinating.
Mhm.
And the author, I won't get into this too much, but I just briefly want to mention the author goes into the social differences between the term daddy's girl and mama's boy.
That's very
Definitely different connotations there.
One's good, one's bad.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And like the daddy's girl, there's like a sexual aspect to that. Like
Yeah.
she's praised for being like cute and pretty and blah blah blah.
Yeah, and like
Daddy's little girl, like
does what she's told, like
loves her
is
daddy.
in favor. Where
Yeah.
mama's
In favor.
boy is like can't fend for yourself, need your mom's
Weak.
help.
Failure to
Yeah.
launch.
Right.
Yeah. So that's all from that book, but
I mean-
I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, a lot of it too, like in that time frame with that, like a lot of that marrying off had to do too with wealth in the families, like marrying into wealth and trying to give there was this concept of trying to bring wealth into your family or keeping or maintaining
You were
it.
using your daughter as like a possession,
Right.
like an exchange, like
It was-
a financial exchange.
Right.
Yeah.
And you could do that with the women. The men, it wasn't because they're going.
Well,
They were getting the other girls.
in Chinese culture, that's part of why boys are valued is the boys stay and the girls go.
Right.
And so the boys are there to help and
Mhm.
all that. So father-daughter incest is the most common incest type. So like you said, maybe there's something to all this. Victims of incest may not report because they experience guilt, shame, fear, and many other reasons. They may blame themselves and feel guilty for allowing it to happen. And even if families are aware of it, they may keep it secret. And, sometimes individuals go on to have behavioral problems, psychiatric problems, act out. So I wanted to touch on consensual incest. So in
Can you not touch on it? Can you instead speak of it?
I'm going to speak of the consensual incest. In 1997, Woody Allen married his adopted stepdaughter, Soon Yi. It was a huge scandal, and it wasn't illegal in New York, but people freaked out and said that this was wrong. That
At what age did he
she was
adopt
over
her?
18, but he had
How long was he her dad?
experienced her as it was his ex-wife Mia Farrow who adopted her, but he was still in her life when she was a minor.
At what age?
He says he wasn't really into her life until she was like a junior in high school, but he knew of her as a child, an adopted child of his
weird
wife, Mia Farrow. I mean, that's part of why they
have the boundary issues. Like,
people were very upset.
You don't date your friend's ex like that. That should even
I broke that.
It's
one.
like girl code.
I broke that once, and It's a bad idea.
Right, like, I mean, if like, can we have
It
that?
never is gonna work out.
Can we have that be the standard? So like, obviously anything closer is not okay.
Because that's
Yeah.
definitely closer.
I mean, and it is, I get it, it's a
People
social
freaked
norm,
out
it's just-
and we're like, it's really wrong. I
Was
wanted to
there
look into
grooming
it because I didn't
involved?
know
Right.
the facts. Supposedly she was, of age, like
money, power.
before they got involved with each other, but he was involved in her life when she was a minor.
Mm.
And they're still together and they have a couple kids.
Hmm.
And then, the Mamas and the Papas band.
Mm-hmm. I like them.
So Mackenzie Phillips came out a little bit ago and said that for 10 years, her and her dad had a consensual sexual relationship.
Biological.
Yeah.
Consensual.
So her dad, John Phillips, was in the Mamas and the Papas.
I don't know if I agree with consensuality when it's like if there was grooming involved and then the kid is like, I think that I am.
They were
consenting
adults when
to
it
this,
started.
Well, it's
But
like,
how long was the grooming
what's it called
involved?
when, Stockholm?
Stockholm and just like,
Yeah.
there could have been like so much time where he
It's a
was
hostile
grooming
takeover.
and then now that she's an adult, she all of a sudden believes like, oh yeah, I want this, but it's because he.
Well, yeah,
was
like if she
manipulating.
had never been involved around him, and like
There were a lot of drugs involved.
she
yeah.
probably would
And
have
drugs.
Yeah.
There you go.
fallen in love with another gent.
But the question
That guy was not a
is,
gent.
if people are adults and they're consenting,
I had
Legally, then
an
yeah.
ethical thing come up that
should
involved
that be okay?
counselors. So if you say if a counselor met a client organically, a previous client, say 7 years down the road,
After they have
after they've
yeah.
ended the therapeutic relationship
Mhm.
and they get into a relationship.
Mhm.
Now I believe the largest
2
standard
years?
I've seen is 5. The largest standard, ethical standard, is 5 years.
What's the action?
There's like legal.
Yeah.
2. Where is
Every code of ethics is a little different.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But the
Five
largest
sound
one I've seen is
appropriate.
5. But still, like, where does that number come from? And is the whole point
Right.
of this saying that there's power and authority issues and you know more? And my biggest issue with this is that we're supposed to retain records for 10 years in Washington State. So you are supposed to still have that person's entire records even at that point. Like, what makes that ethical then, but not every?
Do you think never?
I think never. I think you have to break up with one. You either have to leave the profession or break up with the person.
I actually like your idea on as long as the records are
10
out,
years.
then
10
years is so far out that like
I know, but like,
not.
but it all started in
Sometimes I want to be friends with my clients.
it started in a place.
Not like sexual, but just like I like them as people.
I know.
I can see myself hanging out with them.
But I haven't.
But no, I don't go there either.
Because
But
I'm also
sometimes
like
I want to.
I agree.
It's just it just brings up that moral.
Hey, we can just continue this as friends
I've
outside
had
of here.
people ask if they could be my friend, and I'm like, no.
No, I know. I always say that too.
But then I'm like,
Inside, I'm like,
and then I'm like, I don't know. I think it's 2 years, but I don't know.
I mean,
Sexual
honestly,
relationship is a whole different one.
Right.
yeah, I would never.
to me,
go
it's
there.
like we are in such a bubble of how we learn about the person initially.
Yeah.
Like, it's so
Vulnerable. Like
I
You
don't
know the
know.
nitty gritty.
Right,
And-
and it's not mutual. You don't
Right.
get to learn
That's a
about me in the way that I
that's
am.
a problem.
It's a whole power thing.
Yeah.
that's a problem.
And
Yeah.
they don't have that choice of going to the relationship and holding
I
shit
feel like
back.
that would be
Right.
an unhealthy thing. Yeah, you're getting yourself into an unhealthy situation because it's like that relationship was like based on the fact that they like talking about themselves and not
Right.
hearing about you.
So all these
it
counseling
has to
students
be-
that like we were talking about this, that they all agreed with that, like, yeah, just no, just not at all. But when I said, but what if it was you and you're like in love and it's 6 years down the road, you love this person
that's the problem.
and you
Yeah.
want to get married and you want to have a baby and maybe you do end up and then they like everyone pauses and goes like,
It's a
well,
great,
like
it's
when
a
it's
great,
you, it's like
it's a great
people give
area.
a pass.
because I feel like you could say, oh, never, like I would never.
Well,
But
there are
then
guidelines.
there
so
might be this situation
it
where
obviously
happens.
happens.
illegal.
Yeah, it's not
But
illegal. There's
sexual
guidelines.
misconduct with in counseling, that's the #1 malpractice issue. So it's
Mm.
like anyways.
Yeah, no, it's a good topic.
it's
Actually.
interesting.
Mhm.
It is interesting.
Mhm.
People like to violate, and maybe it's just because it is taboo.
Yeah.
That down
I
the
was
road
like
there's
with
like
you on that.
a subconscious attraction.
Yeah, it's
'Cause
not.
it's
It's not
forbidden.
right.
Because it was forbidden, and but now it may be legal, but there's
Yeah.
still a taboo.
Right.
Totally.
Because the
Mhm.
ethics.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's so interesting. When I was in elementary school, like 9-ish, a book called Flowers in the Attic came out by V.C.
Remember that.
Edwards.
That. Mhm.
I was obsessed. All my friends were obsessed.
Mhm.
And
Solid.
the main reason is because the main plot point is this brother and sister, like, getting into it and having sex.
Wow. I don't remember that part. I just remember hearing about. I think I saw a movie, maybe.
We were obsessed with it because it was freaking naughty, and you could see a building, and you're like, "Oh my god, that are they gonna? Are
Are
they
they
not?"
going to? Are they
Yeah,
not?
and then they do it. I mean, it's so fucked up, but 40
It's like
million
a train
copies.
wreck. You
40
can't
million copies were
normally-
sold. So popular. So this brings it back to again, like people like incest.
So
Or
maybe
just a
Freud was
taboo.
right, is
They
what
just
you're
like
saying.
things that are.
At least fictionally, people are attracted to it.
They're attracted to things you're not supposed to do.
Well, it's kind of like when alcohol and stuff gets banned, like
Then you
like
want it
sales
more.
sales go up. Prohibition, like you get more underground sales. Like it's when you don't have access, like with marijuana when it was illegal.
Mhm.
Like I heard about it all the time. Everyone I knew. Now I'm like it's really not at the center, even though there's a shop on every corner. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Mhm.
It's so interesting.
Legalize it all, I think we're saying.
Yes.
So
As
I will.
Freud would say.
Right.
No, didn't he write a whole paper about that, saying that like cocaine was the miracle drug and had no side effects?
I did a whole
Probably.
topic on cocaine.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Oh.
listen to it.
Which episode?
This one with
The
Freud.
one about cocaine.
It's
Is
one where
that the title? Is the title?
No, I think it was. That's how I did it. Right?
The picture.
Do you remember the title? Oh.
Eyebrows.
So I'll just wrap up with a quote by Jeffrey Kalin, a porn industry trend expert.
Hmm.
So he says, not much has changed over the last few millennia, and we've always had an erotic interest in incest stories. Oedipus met a tragic end, but what really makes the story is that he bangs his mom.
Yeah, I was gonna say, who was Oedipus?
Is it Greek?
It's the Greek like
story.
mythology.
Yeah, and he
Okay.
ends up, marrying his mom.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants that part. Nobody wants the like commitment end of that. They just like the sex part of it.
So it's interesting. I mean, it like as a therapist, like I've dealt with the dark side, the
Yeah.
trauma,
Mhm.
all of that can happen from this.
Mhm.
But then on the other side, it's like one of the most popular porns out there. So what is going on?
I've dealt with this too, and I'm kind
What
of
is
like,
going on, right?
well, yeah, it's just this idea that it's so like this is such a bad thing, this taboo, but I think
And
it's
it
just
can
more
be very
common.
damaging.
But it's more common. I think it's common than people
Yeah,
talk about,
I
and
do too.
especially maybe more in the past as well. Like,
Yeah, and how much of the taboo is
Mm.
making it damaging?
Freudian slip. History of
Oh,
cocaine.
Freudian slip. Listen to it.
okay,
We had special
That's a good
guest
title.
Dylan from Dylan and Tommy's show that, and the
Oh,
we talked
that's
about the
right.
Beirut
That's
explosion.
right.
oh cool. Okay,
Check it out.
I will.
Until next time. Oh my gosh.
Until next time.
Try some cocaine. You might get some great ideas. I mean, don't do that. Maybe like
Stay away from the half-bloods. That sounded racist. Don't do that either. Oh my god. They're all terrible. They're all terrible.
Next time, don't listen to these two.
No, don't. Why? We press stop, Sarah.
Please press stop.